I'm gonna get another cup of coffee.
Yeah, when the whole world goes back to productivity, you don't have to stop drinking that much coffee, do you? Like, you can continue the streak, right? You can drink coffee all day.
Are you talking to me?
I'm just talking to everybody. I'm just convincing myself that it's okay.
I learned how to do the cold brew. That's been my new thing. That's been pretty good.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
I think it's like the only time I think that Ian, I mean, I think he might have wanted to kill me a couple times, but like I thought it was just old coffee, but he'll stash away coffee. Like if there's like a little bit of a pot left in the house, he'll pour it in a cup and then put it in the fridge so that it's cold for later. And I think Keith and I both did this at one point throughout last summer where we like threw his coffee away because it was like, who put this in here? You know, like no one's going to drink this, and we threw it away. He's like, where's my iced coffee?
Oh no.
He's 20. Yeah, he's like 20 something years old, so he can drink iced coffee or cold brew coffee at like 10 o'clock at night, you know, like what? Give it a couple minutes here. And then we'll record it too, so you'll be able to watch it again, Jenna.
Oh boy!
Perfect.
Yeah.
That way, whatever I miss, yeah.
You can share it with everybody.
I can send it to my parents. They'll be so proud.
Yeah. I'd start asking you questions, Jenna, but then it would defeat the purpose because then I'm reserving them in my head, and it's like, well, I got to figure out all this stuff. I was mentioning this when we were coming up with people. I've got like a really long list of like very interesting characters and people for different reasons and coaches and like kind of separating all this list out. I'm like, man, I've got like 2 years worth of podcast information, you know, of people that I can interview that like no one else knows really, but we do. And then getting interesting stories. And I was like, Jenna will be a great one because like you and I, we know each other through Warrior Sailing and we have a lot of mutual friends, but I don't really know much other than that. So
yeah,
like,
I was thinking that today because I watched Rob's and I was like, they go back like so far. And like,
yeah, like
we overlap,
but
like we don't really.
We've like, you know, Rob and I have like lived together on the road, right? Like we've like sailed together in different formats, but like, you know, we just haven't. So it'll be great. Like I get to know my friends better. They just can't ask questions back, you know.
Yeah.
This is a one-way
one-sided
interview. Yeah, one-sided interview only. Corey's probably in the pool. That's what he was doing. See, he just keeps the camera off because I got to be official here in case my kids ask me to do something. And he's like floating around and with his earbud in.
His margaritas in the hot tub. Yeah. Oh, he came back.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm recording this.
I think you're on mute, Corey.
Yeah, he's on mute. It works better that way, actually.
You get the idea.
I pretty much picked that one out. Yeah. Paige, was it hard with the passcode, or is it pretty easy? Was that? I know that you've been on a bunch of these.
I didn't need the passcode. When I I put in the meeting thing, and it just went right to there. I saw Jenna, so I didn't have to type in the passcode. I typed in it looks like a phone number, that long number, and it just went right to you.
It seems like we just kind of hit the link and was up and running. Hey, Richard, how's it going, man? Richard's muted, but I'm saying hello. Greg and Miggs, Miguel, what's going on? That's fun.
Not much, man. I got back from the ER last night about 2 o'clock in the morning.
And you got to spend less time in the ER. You should work on that.
I'm over it, man. This is the 8th time they can't figure anything out.
Sorry to hear. I'm glad you're logged in this morning. It's at least a positive sign.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm trying to.
I saw the video that you weren't in the ER. We're going to count up the minutes that you're not in the ER. We're going to have a celebration for today. It's going to be at least 1 hour on this call.
No crap.
How are your dogs?
Max woke up in pain this morning. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he got off the bed wrong or what, but he's not putting any weight on his back left leg.
Mm.
So I give him
Sometimes
some
they
pain.
do that to get more food.
Yeah, he ate all his food this morning, so
Oh.
that wasn't the case. But I give him pain meds and see how he holds up today. If keeps up by tomorrow morning, I'll take him to the vet.
Gotcha.
But
That doesn't count as the ER.
no.
If you go to the vet, that still counts for time away from the ER.
Yeah, no, for sure. So far, what I've gotten is that they've ruled out cancer. They've ruled out kidneys. Kidney function is good. And they did an ultrasound last night. And everything looks good kidney-wise. The suspicion is either a benign tumor that's causing the parathyroid to go haywire, which is causing the kidney to waste phosphate. So,
Gotcha.
just trying to figure that out.
I'm sure that get it all figured out, man.
Yeah, I'm
We're back up and running soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like I'm confined to my walls, the mailbox, and medical appointments.
Gotta get out on that water, man.
I'm trying to, trust me. I'm trying everything I can.
So are we.
It's been a pain, man. Just doing a lot of iRest yoga and meditation, and I've got
In Wayne's World, like, cool. Well, welcome. Thank you guys, Warriors, for tuning in, and those of you that will see the recording later, thanks for taking a look at it. We're on our week number 2 for the Warrior Watch. We got morning watch going on. This week, we've got Jenna, Coach Jenna. Yay!
Hey, everybody.
We were just talking a little bit earlier before we got going with the recording about how I'm really excited. One, we had a lot of requests last week to have a female interview, and having female coaches and having people within the sailing community realize what the community is all about. So I said, heck yeah, I got a whole list of females that I'd like to get some more highlights about their sailing career and their little background. And I was really excited with Jenna because we've sailed with each other at Warrior Sailing. We've gotten to know each other a little bit through Warrior Sailing, but in general, it's always so busy at the camps that we don't get to really follow up and really get to know each other and know a little bit more about your background. So I'm going to save all those questions for now, and I get to learn more about my friends while all the Warriors learn about everybody. So thank you very much for taking the time. I appreciate it for joining the call.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I'm stoked.
Yeah. So again, we'll follow a little bit from last week, and then at the end, what I'll do is ask the same questions I asked Rob. So we'll have kind of a consistency at the end. And just like last week, I mean, the main objective here with the Warrior Watches to get the family together, and the Warrior group that we put together and people that have sailed with us. I want you to get to know the coaches, and maybe you guys don't know Jenna. Some of you have been on board with Jenna. Some of them have had as coaches, and we travel, and so we meet a lot of people, and there aren't as many of us as there are you. So generally speaking, most people know our name and us, but don't really know maybe some of the coaches that haven't been at a couple of the camps on the East Coast or out in the Midwest. And so we'll get a little background on Jenna and get a little more detailed about what you have going on. So let's start there. Where are you from, Jenna?
Right now or like originally?
Originally, where are you from originally?
All right, so I was born and raised on Long Island, New York, South Coast, South Shore, Patchogue, so Great South Bay sailor originally.
Okay, cool. And then you grew up there, and then where did that lead you to?
Grew up there, went to college on Long Island, and then once I graduated college, I moved up to St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada for a few years for grad school. It was very cold there, and I have since relocated to sunny San Diego, where it's much nicer.
72 degrees.
Yeah,
every
constant
day.
72. It's kind of cloudy today though, so I was joking I was going to be bundled up with my hat and everything. It's kind of cold.
It's 68.
It might be actually.
Yeah. Oh man. And so growing up in Long Island, like before we get into kind of sailing background, so school interests that led you to college, is there something that you studied at college that you continued on with? Obviously you went to grad school. Was that to kill more time, or was that to
a little of both. So I knew like through middle school and high school that I wanted to do some sort of engineering. I had kind of just settled on aerospace because it seemed pretty cool. And then I found a school through my sister that specialized in naval architecture and marine engineering. Went and visited it, and it was like, oh, this is perfect. This is everything I want. It's an engineering degree, and it's boats, which is fantastic. So went there 4 years. The school's Webb Institute. It's right pretty close to Oak Cliff, actually. I think it's like a 20-minute drive from Oak Cliff sailing.
okay.
Yeah, so I spent 4 years there, graduated, and then my grad school I was focused more on like harsh environment ocean engineering, so it was a lot of ice mechanics and things like that. And then I was also working for a testing company up there. So you take the design of a big ship and you scale it down to something like, well, we had a 30-foot model at one point, but something reasonably small, and then you basically run it through wave basins or towing tanks. And you can pull a lot of data off those. So I was working as a test engineer there while doing grad school.
Cool. That stuff is so fascinating. There's a lot of times where I like go to Kings Point and I'm like, man, why didn't I do this? So then as far as sailing goes, was sailing a part of that as your college career, childhood? Where did all that stuff start?
So I kind of started. I think it was probably like 4 or 5. I honestly don't even remember, but it was basically like parents just wanted to get us out of the house during the summer, so they just threw us into summer sailing camp. And I loved it. I stuck with it. My sister, not so much. She dropped out. So I continued sailing like through all junior program. Once I was old enough, I was racing junior program. And then I think when I turned 16 or 17, started actually coaching, and then just coached junior program all the way through college until I graduated, actually. So that was kind of the background. Yeah, so it was always like single person dinghies, 2-person dinghies. Once I got to college, I jumped up to we called it the big boat team. It was a Trip 33 that we raced. It was one of the professor's boats, and he just took like 8 of us on board to crew for him, basically, like free crew, free crew and boat work.
Perfect, yeah.
But no, it was a lot of
OPB. I mean, he figured out in a way that he probably got free dockage at Webb or whatever, you know, like it all worked out.
We always had eager crew willing to do whatever boat work. Like before every race, we would go down on Friday afternoon and jump in and clean the bottom. Like he didn't.
Yeah.
He had it made for him for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we raced. We did a lot of the inshore windward leeward races, Can 1. So this was all Long Island Sound now. So north shore of Long Island, Block Island race. So kind of like the technically distance races, but because you're in the Sound, it's not really like coastal. You're still inshore.
Yeah,
really.
Round Block Island and the Vineyard race and that
race
sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah, so we did kind of that whole series through spring and fall. And so that was my intro to kind of the big boat scene, and I loved it, and I still do. So I've mostly been focused back in the big boat world since I didn't sail much in grad school. There wasn't really any sailing up in Newfoundland. But once I moved back, I got a chance to do a transatlantic crossing. So that was like right around the time that I moved back to the U.S. And then since I've been out in San Diego, I've been mostly crewing a bunch of different boats, everything from like J-22s, Etchells, Benettos, and I recently jumped onto a TP-52 program, which has been really fun.
Nice. Which program?
It's Pendragon. So it's technically a Davidson 52, so it's an older boat. But the owners kind of starting the team from the ground up, so it was nice to kind of get in at the start of that and kind of like help build the foundation and learn the boat while he was also learning it. So and
Yeah.
we all were together. So it's been a really cool experience to kind of see that side of it.
Yeah. So the Pendragon boats have been around for a long time. So
Yeah.
That's gotta be
Oh,
that's awesome. Yeah. So that transition is something that people in sailing talk about a lot because, and it's a little bit different if you're not used to the community, you know, like, oh, I grew up sailing on small boats and dinghies and then I transitioned to the big boats, you know.
It's a different world.
It is a different world, and that's why we've chosen J22s. It's still kind of a big boat if you're a dinghy sailor that people sail J22s because it's a great way to learn. So you don't step into a big boat and you have a lot bigger loads on winches, and there's just a lot more involved in the big boat. Plus, you get to do everything on a smaller boat, right?
Yeah.
Like you get to trim
You
the
do
main,
multiple
like,
jobs even.
Yeah, if you step on a TP52, even if you're the new person, you're most likely not going to be trimming the main.
No, when I stepped on, I was ballast tactician for the first few races until they realized that I was capable, and then I slowly worked my way back. And I think after a year and a half now, I'm trimming main. But yeah, I started as rail meat for sure.
Yeah, I think, well, that's also one of the things I want to emphasize is in these morning watches, and one of the reasons I was so excited to interview you and get you involved in this was last week we had Rob, and Rob has devoted his life to professional sailing. You know, before that he was literally a sewer guy in Long Island, which is, you know, explains a lot, but it gave us, you know, a perspective of professional sailing. And what I found in Warrior Sailing is that we do this camaraderie and introduce people to sailing, and we introduce them to professionals, right? You have a professional coach on board your boat, and that's something that we want to consistently provide for everyone. But what I don't want is for people to think that they should become professional sailors. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And it, you know, I chose that profession, and it took me a really long time to realize that there really isn't very much money involved in it. And though it's fun to travel and it's great, that finding people who are amateur sailors, meaning that they don't get paid to go sailing, they literally do it for a hobby and they love sailing. What I want to try to convince a lot of people is that the idea is not to become a professional sailor. The idea is to enjoy the sport, know the basics, to then earn a spot on a team and be the best amateur sailor that you can possibly be.
Yeah.
So could you highlight the ideas and differences between your attitude between working, and Rob gets mad and call it a real job, and then what that means to be an amateur sailor?
Yeah. So I think, you know, that's kind of the dream for everybody, is to like make a living off traveling the world and racing. But like you said, it's really hard, and I kind of run into that a lot. And you know, growing up, it was just take whatever crew spots were available, like get yourself out there, get your name out there, and start networking. And I think that's the biggest thing, is networking. So even, you know, I was 23 when I moved out here to San Diego, and it was just the same mentality. Just jump on every boat. You're going to have some really terrible experiences, and I definitely had that. Like in the middle of the race, I was ready to just jump overboard and swim to shore. Like that's how terrible the skipper was. But just jump in, be willing to do the dirty work, you know, stick around after, clean up the boat, come early, help prep sails, and you'll start to dig in and find your community. And then from that you can grow. And you know, if you are looking the professional route, like there's always deliveries and things, there's always people looking to pay to get their boat from A to B, so that's always an option. But yeah, just I'd say as an amateur, there's always people looking for crew, because it's really hard to find consistently 8 to 12 people to get on a boat with you to go sailing for a weekend and give up that sort of time and sacrifice time with family. So there's always opportunity to get out there as a hobby, and just be willing to do the grunt work. And if you're looking to get paid to do it, that'll, I think, come eventually. At least it has for me some opportunities. But you just kind of have to stick with it and grind with it if that's what you want long term.
Yeah, there's a point where if you're a retired individual, looking at sailing in a professional manner tends to take the fun away from it. It's still fun and it's still fantastic, but being an amateur, you get to go places and do really cool things, and then you get to leave when the really dirty work happens, when the boat gets taken apart and everybody has to take the thing apart. Like, and what I like about amateur sailing, what I'm trying to provide, and I was a boat captain getting paid to take care of a boat for amateur crews. And so finding amateurs, I would have to pay them in providing services, meaning travel, housing, expenses, paid a lot of people in beer and rum. And sometimes you think it might be cheaper if you just paid them and didn't buy drinks for some of the people that I sailed with. But being an amateur allows you to choose who you want to sail with, right? Like the teams that you develop, like you said, you don't want to take a weekend away from your life and sail with people you don't want to be with. Otherwise, you got to get paid.
Yeah, if you were getting paid, you'd certainly stick out those crappy situations. But yeah, if you're not getting paid and it's a terrible time, you have no reason to go back. If it's not fun, don't do it.
Right. And that's what, I think one of the things that's missed a little bit is that not everybody in every team is going to be right for you. I think maybe you could help, and maybe it's not coming from me, but how many opportunities have you taken to go on somebody's boat and maybe it wasn't the right fit?
Certainly when I was new to San Diego and didn't really have that network, there was one boat in particular that was terrible. But I had probably jumped between eight boats to start with before I found the one that I was going to settle with, and then grow my network from there. And so now I think, so that first year I was out here, I probably jumped between like 6 to 8 boats, all different classes and things too. It wasn't like only J22s I jumped between 8 boats. But yeah, I found kind of the fleet that I thought was really cool, the boat that was really cool, which ended up being in San Diego, the Beneteau 36-7 fleet's pretty good. Pretty big fleet, pretty competitive. So I stuck with that. I'm still racing. I call tactics on one of those boats, but that program I think is petering out a little bit, which has kind of opened up the opportunity for me to kind of go back and, I've been doing a little bit of match racing now, some Etchell sailing, and then this TP52 program, and kind of let that take over a little bit more. But yeah, there's definitely, I stand by that. If you're not having a good time and you're giving up your entire weekend, or, if you're on a distance race, sometimes longer than that, then there's no need. You should be having fun.
So I got a question, and I'm going to call Paige out. Paige was wondering if she sees a difference in crewing as a man and a woman, and how do you deal with that as far as finding crew or randomly showing up on boats?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Paige. And it's definitely something I've struggled with. A lot of times you just put your resume out like in response to somebody looking for a crew, and like on paper you could look really good, but if somebody, so I'll just kind of put a comparison. So like I call tactics on this Beneteau. The bow guy for the boat is also a really good sailor. He's a really cool guy. So we've had like this conversation of if he and I both put in a resume to some program, they would 90% of the time choose him over me. Even like we've raced the same races, we hold the same titles from that Beneteau fleet, and it's purely based on the fact that he's a guy that he'd probably get chosen. But if you get the chance to like talk face to face, and I can kind of go into detail, and they can see that like, yeah, I'm a woman, but I can haul sails onto the boat. I'm willing to go up to the top of the mast. I will do anything and more. It's kind of that breakthrough. And offshore, I found, is harder to get a spot on for sure than like the inshore weekend racing. So I've been fortunate. I think 2 years after I moved out here, I had the itch to keep coaching. So I hadn't done that since college. And I contacted J World Performance Sailing, which is a school here in San Diego, and they took me on part-time as a coach. So through J World, I've had the opportunity to coach offshore. So I've coached for a Pac Cup and a Transpac now. And you can even tell when clients step on. And so for those, we run 3 coaches to 6 clients on a boat. And so it's usually myself as the only female coach. You could tell when male clients step on, they're kind of like, oh, okay, we're gonna go across the ocean with you as our deck boss, okay. But like 2 or 3 days into it, they're like, okay, no, like, or hopefully even before that, hopefully day 1, they're like, okay, you're capable, you know what you're talking about. Like, I trust you. I trust the calls you're gonna make out there. So it's I think like it's hard as a woman, like on paper or just through email, to really like convey that you're just as capable. But yes, sailing is certainly a male dominated world, so it's a hurdle,
Yeah.
but it's definitely
you
something
know,
that
and
you
I
can.
always find that to be really unfortunate. But the truth is that at the end of the day, I feel, this is how I feel, at least I've always provided opportunities for women to go sailing and it on board the boats, because one, everybody has to prove themselves. I feel that way in sailing, and the people that don't prove themselves usually talk about all their experiences a lot. And at the end of the day, the people that don't really talk about it a lot and just do it are the ones that have the most experience, whether you're female or male. But it's unfortunate that you don't get that like first step in is more difficult because you have things working against you. And that's all we need is another thing to work against us.
This snowballs into that whole argument. Like I like the Volvo Ocean Race did like the all-female crew, or like you got docked crew spots for having an all-male crew. Like I'm not like a huge fan of that sort of thing. Like I don't want it to be like forced out there.
Yeah.
I just want to be allowed, like, give me a chance to come on the boat and I'm going to put the work in and you're going to see that I'm a good crew. Like that, I just want those opportunities to exist.
Yeah. Well, and that goes, and for me, I think it goes back to network, and it's who you know, what not necessarily what you know. So if you know the right people and you have the basic skills, which I think warriors would be very surprised sometimes. This is one of my favorite things is when people come back to me a year and a half later and they've gone sailing on their own thinking that they're going to step on the boat, and they've listened to this person who's supposedly the captain or the skipper on the boat has never actually had any basic instruction themselves. But they might have enough money to buy a boat, but they don't necessarily know what to do or how to teach people how to do it. And it's really surprising to me. It's like, no, you got to get your confidence up here because you know what you're doing. You really do know what you're doing. And if you have this wide open thing that, okay, I'm joining this community, it might not be that welcoming sometimes, which is with everybody, right? Civilians, military, everybody, is you just got to have that attitude to get out there. And it isn't, some crews just aren't for the right people. Like, I have become accustomed to, I just like sailing with warriors, because the thing that I like about sailing with warriors is that I personally know the coaches that have taught them. And so if they screw up, I just go and yell at the coach.
That's fair.
That's the easiest thing.
Yeah.
It's like, who was your coach at basic? Really?
Damn it, Jenna.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So your day job, okay? And you're an amateur sailor. You spend, how much time do you think you devote to sailing, and how does that work with your day job?
So day job is pretty flexible, which has been really nice. My boss is also a sailor, so she kind of understands like when distance races come up and that sort of stuff, the time commitment there.
Okay.
So day job is, kind of typical. I try to get in like 7, leave by 3. So that's my Monday to Friday. If so like I coach for J World occasionally. They're pretty good about like when I fill in for lessons, that'll be on weekends for the most part. But we do a lot of racing clinics on the J80s and J105s and things like that. So those will run like a Wednesday to Sunday sort of thing. So when those come up, I'll either take vacation time or kind of bank some normal job time so that I can take those days off and go sailing. I usually, so for J World, it's kind of works out for the most part like a weekend a month, sometimes a little less. My life has gotten a little bit busier with the Navy stuff recently, so
we'll hop right into that. So that,
I mean, I was going to brush that.
I don't know if we had any influence on that, but so that's a new thing. So you've been an engineer, right? I mean, that's what what is your job title, and how does that lead you to your new job?
Yeah, so job title is technically a mechanical engineer, but I'm naval architecture, marine engineer focused. So that's everything from, depending on the project that we have, just design work, simulation work, so CAD, computer software, designing, a lot of R&D, so kind of like pie in the sky brainstorming for different ideas of what could work. And then some programs are fortunate enough to make it to a prototyping phase where we'll actually build a component to add onto a boat or build an entire boat. And then we go into sea trials, and I get to run, for the most part, all of those sea trials. So everything from planning the personnel and what kind of the task breakdown is to data collection, data analysis after the fact. I get to drive the boats, which has been really fun. Been on some pretty cool Navy boats. And then, so back in the office, writing reports for those. So so my normal job is a good mix of office work and field work. Obviously, when we go on field trials, like if I have to travel, I'm kind of restricted. I'll probably miss regattas and stuff for that. But so normal job, I'm an engineer. And then I decided that I'm a sucker for not having any free time. So actually, exactly a year ago yesterday, I commissioned into the Navy Reserves as a meteorology oceanography officer. So that's always been kind of a subject that I've been really into. I took a few classes in undergrad. My grad school was obviously a little bit of like harsh environment focused. I did a lot of ice mechanic engineering and all that sort of stuff. And then through sailing, like being a navigator. So for Pack Up, I was kind of like the apprentice navigator, and then same thing for Transpac. Through sailing, you kind of,
because you just don't have quite enough credentials being that you're like a rocket scientist from Webb Institute and Marine Institute, and then you read a couple books on meteorology during the Pac Cup and the Transpac, which are trans-Pacific races, by the way, from California to Hawaii. You had to be the apprentice.
Yeah, well, like I feel like in sailing, that's kind of how you always learn through an apprenticeship. So like, you kind of just like find that mentor that knows a lot, and you just latch on and you try to absorb everything that they know. So that's kind of what I've been doing over the years. And then it was like, oh, this is a job that I could have, and I can serve and be part of the Navy at the same time. So I applied thinking that I wouldn't get selected as a meteorologist, that they would select me as basically a naval architect or an engineer. And then it came back that I was accepted for the one I wanted. So here I am.
Nice. So then, what are the obligations there? I mean, you're in the military. You're in both. You like took it to heart. Now you're like family on both sides. Yeah. So
technically, it's a 6-year contract, but I'm planning to stay and take it to retirement. This first year has been pretty fun. We'll see where we are in 5 and 20 years is certainly quite a bit different. But so right now I'm in a training phase. So the reserves take a lot longer to get qualified. So I've got 3 years to qualify as a meteorologist. I had to go to officer development school. So I actually just got back from that at the beginning of April. And then next winter, I'll be heading to meteorology school. Once I finish that, I should be able to get qualified, hopefully. And then I have to qualify as an information warfare dominance officer, and I've got my 5 years to do that. So I know in active duty that usually happens in like 3 months, but in the reserves, they spread it out over a long time. So I can't deploy or really be assigned to a proper unit until I get those qualifications. Right now I drill with the Fleet Weather Center San Diego, so I'm part of a unit, but I'm in a training phase. So like my job is to just, when I go to drill, make sure my training's done and I'm learning and kind of doing that apprenticeship sort of thing.
Okay.
And then once I'm qualified, I'm deployable and I can go serve properly and fully if and when they need me.
That's awesome. And it's always nice to learn more about your friends. So so what you're saying is you're pretty busy. So let's see, you do like weekly sailing, some coaching, you're a rocket scientist, you're an engineer, and you're in the Navy. So when do you hang out with your husband?
He loves being home on his computer. Like this quarantine life is like, we were joking because I was at ODS when everything got locked down, and he was like, like I'm just living here alone. Like, this is great. This is all I've ever wanted. So he's cool with it. He does a little sailing too. So like the Beneteau 36-7 that I race on, he also races. So like those weekends we're at least together the whole time. And then he didn't, for Transpac, he didn't fly out to meet me because we were supposed to travel after that. But like for Pack Up, he flew up to the start. He's super supportive on all that. He'll come and hang out, and post races, like on the 52 Etchels, he'll come down to the club and hang out at the after party and stuff. So
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. Like,
Yeah.
you go sailing, I'll meet you at the party.
yeah,
That's
no,
another way to do it. Always, like you could be race committee, right? You don't even have to do
yeah,
the sailing.
oh yeah.
It's still a family. So that leads. So then, how did you get introduced to warrior sailing, and just like what how did that happen?
Okay, so this kind of like rewind a little bit. I don't know how you overlap with Jesse Fielding, but so one of the races we did when I was at Webb was the Intercollegiate Offshore Regatta. So in that one, it's a group of 8 to 10 students take over a boat, and the boats are kind of, I guess, donated for the regatta, or kind of chartered for the regatta from the
We've
owner.
done that for every intercollegiate regatta. There's always a boat that we throw in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was racing on a J109, and they always throw an owner's rep, that sort of thing, on board with you. And Jesse was, I think he was the owner's rep for this J109 that I was on. So we kind of met that weekend, hung out that weekend, and then we were just Facebook friends. So like we're not like best friends or anything like that, but still friends on Facebook. And I saw a post after I had moved out here to San Diego that he was out here racing with Warrior Sailing, and I was like, what is this? This seems pretty cool. And like, it was a really long, like really heartfelt post from him. I was like, this seems interesting. Let me look it up. And I did, and I saw that there was the page like looking for volunteers and coaches. So I filled that out, and then Corey called me up, and it kind of just worked out from there. So yeah, I think my first camp was the San Diego one 3 years ago, something like that. And yeah, it kind of just snowballed from there, and it's been fun.
Yeah, and you've done the summer sports clinic with us too.
Yep. Yeah, so I've done all the San Diego stuff, summer sports clinic. I think the last two, like I either got jury duty or something, or we had sea trials. Like that one always seems to fall like with some conflict.
Or like a day job, or or being in the reserve, or
Yeah.
regattas, or other things. There's obligations other places, but yeah.
Yeah.
We get it. We'd like to have you anytime that you're available. That's always the first call. Like, we're going to California. Is Jenna available?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm game.
That's awesome.
Whether or not I'm available, I'm always game though.
Well, you're still going to get the invite, and a lot of the time it's just open. Like, just show up, because we can always put you on a boat. Well, I'm glad so that's the network. I mean, Jesse has benefit from the Sailing Foundation by using some of our boats over his career. And we will have him on as well, because he's very entertaining. But his network leads to other people's network, and it's really a small community. And so that's one of the things that's always emphasized in our program, is the camaraderie. Is you meet somebody, you show people that you know how to sail, and you have some fun, and you have a good attitude, and you're willing to help, and then the things start to add up. Even if you move to a new area, that's where you rely on your network. So that's great. Glad that you reached out, and that it worked, that we responded to a volunteer form. Ian, Corey, nice job. I mean, I'm terrible at following up. So I'm going to finish up here with some consistent questions that we ask every week.
Okay.
So I guess you kind of said it, but what would you say to anyone or warriors that want to start sailing more outside the camps? Just some advice.
I think it's important to kind of find the sailing area that you're interested in. And what I mean by that is, like, I know that I love being offshore and I love racing. If you put me on a cruising boat, I'm going to be there like trying to perfectly trim the sails and like make it a terrible time for everybody else. So I know I'm not a good cruiser, and I love traveling, like maybe one day, but for right now, like that's not the area for me. But some people might not like racing as much and might really enjoy the cruising or the day sailing. So I think it's important to find kind of what niche you want to go into, and then start networking within that community, because the racing community and the cruising community are pretty separate. And then even, here in San Diego, we do have a pretty good like day sailing community. People will go out and just kind of make a flotilla somewhere and then come back. So I think it's
that's
important.
what, like, you and I don't even know what those people do.
Yeah.
That's how separate the
I've
racers
seen
are
them.
from the cruisers. Like, I still don't know. You do what?
You get an anchorage where? How do you do that?
Like, why do you need
You don't just sail all the way through the night? Like,
yeah,
you stop?
you don't stop?
this?
You don't sleep? You mean you like to sleep? And you like to relax? I don't know what's wrong with you.
You eat normals and not freeze-dried?
That's great advice, and that's something that we've had to learn a lot, too. And that's what's nice about having Corey, as his background isn't in sailing, is all my sailing friends are racers. So that's what I like doing.
Yeah.
But we all have had a stint at cruising, and if you do it right and you take our advice to network well, it's a great way and it's a great lifestyle. And it's not always about racing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's important to, let me just add on to that, like, you guys come to the camp as individuals, but a lot of you have families at home, and if it's something that you want to get your kids involved with or your spouses involved with, it's kind of introducing them to that too. Like, let them know that there are different areas. Like, you might be really into racing, but they might be cruising, so maybe compromise and meet in the middle if you want them to join you, sort of thing. So
yeah, a Beneteau 36-7. I mean, right there,
yeah,
you got the
both.
best mixture of the two. It's like you can be as intense in the back while having somebody sit on the rail just having fun with people.
It does everything, but nothing really well. It's
Yeah.
not a great cruiser, and it's not a great racer.
Yeah, that's usually how they do it. Yeah. All right, so worst offshore/weather story. That could be personal, could be weather, because you've done how many transatlantics and trans-Pacifics?
Ooh, okay. I've got one transatlantic. That one was easy. We didn't have any bad weather. It was beautiful. I've done 2 transpacks, or a pack up and a transpac. I think we had some bad squalls, but nothing's really that bad. I don't know. It's that type 2 where it was like terrifying when it was happening, but it's a great story after the fact. The worst event that happened though was this transpac. I was on deck, so I ended up taking the blame for it. But so for all my transpacks, I was a coach on board, so we get the clients to the point where they're self-sufficient, and we kind of just hang back as a manager role, make sure nobody gets hurt, which is a real risk.
I've been there, done that.
Yeah, so we were maybe 2 days out from Hawaii, and at that point, people get a little cocky. Like, you're getting close, so like energy's running high again. Like, people are excited that it's almost over, and at the same time, they've been out there for 8 days, so they're pretty confident in their abilities and can kind of get a little lax. And that's basically exactly what happened. It was a night watch. It was around midnight, something like that. We got really deep. Spinnaker collapsed. And then it was just kind of like a mixture of they did everything wrong, and we ended up wrapping the spinnaker around the forestay really, really badly. And we run with a spinnaker net up, which is it runs off the forestay back to the mast, and it's kind of like a blocker so that you shouldn't wrap the spinnaker around the forestay. It's supposed to catch it. But it ended up wrapping all of that with the sail around it. Oh, it was so bad. And then we did an all hands call up on deck, and one coach was on the helm. I went forward with the other coach, and it was wrapped so badly it took us over 2 hours to get it unwrapped. And if you go back and you look at our course during that time, it's like we would jibe one way to try to deload it and like let it unspin one way, and then we jibe back, and you could just see that track for 2 hours. It was so
and then
bad.
it starts to, you're not sure which way it went.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone's
just like hourglasses the other way.
And it never happens when it's the light out and you can see it. So there's headlamps.
It was to the point where it was like, all right, like this is how we're getting to Hawaii. Like we're just going like this.
Like,
and then we started. Out. So we cut. The spinnaker net was destroyed. We saved the spinnaker. It was totally fine. 0 tears at all.
Perfect. Put it back up. Quick.
Yeah. Everyone was because we tame it to like how the clients feel. If they're really gung-ho, like we'll put spinnakers back up. They were all pretty timid after that, so we had to, it was like put the training wheels back on, we'll go like smaller, depower, and then we'll build back to this one. So yeah, those last 2 days were a little rough, but we made it and everyone was happy at the end. So
Yeah, and then you forget about it, and then the next time you get cocky, you're like, oh, I remember this one.
Yep, I remember how this plays out, and it's terrible.
Nice. All right, what is something that you've learned about the veteran population that you wouldn't have known now that you're in the military? But what is something through warrior sailing that you've specifically learned in the interaction with veterans?
So I think the biggest thing I've learned through warrior, and then what I'm learning now as a reservist, and what people have kind of been telling me all along, is that the military community is going to be like the best fraternity that you've ever been a member of. That, you know, it's a huge population, but it's a small world, and everyone's there to help everybody out. And I've seen that through warrior, and I'd be naive to say that warrior didn't play an influence in my decision to join the military. And I'm seeing it now, like, you're so focused as a unit or as a small group, and then you really build those friendships, and then it lasts forever, you know. Like,
yeah,
I know some people at warrior were still talking about their friends from boot camp 20-30 years ago. And so like, I'm starting to see how that all works now that I just got back from ODS. So, like, yeah, there's some friendships there that are definitely going to stay for a long time.
Yeah, and I mean that leads right into the next question is, you know, how does that relate to sailing? And you kind of pointed it out.
Yeah, it's all networking. Everything is networking, and yeah, just building those friendships and those connections, and yeah.
Yeah, I always say that it was like the one thing that you always remember from those ocean races or even day races, you know, is that moment that you've all relied on each other when it could have been very dangerous. And while it might not have been as dangerous as some people in the military situations are, there's still quite a bit of danger involved in being out there and dealing with the elements, but you always remember those people that you sailed with, and it's something that no one can ever take away from you.
Yeah.
Right? It's like this relationship that will last forever. If I see somebody that I sailed with 15 years ago and I haven't seen them ever since, there's going to be a joke that you had on board the boat during a race that you did 15 years ago, but you still know them, they're still your friend, and you've done something that most people probably haven't seen. So I think there's do you see that in similarities that you're seeing in relationships?
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing, like, when you're offshore with 10 other people in a very confined space, you're going to get to know each other really well, especially like day 5 at 2 a.m. Like, you start to talk about some really weird and really personal things. And then when you
really interesting.
when you mix that with like some sketchy and sometimes hazardous situations, I think it just makes the camaraderie grow even stronger. And yeah, like you said, like, we're not in a war zone by any means, but there's still like that stress that bonds everybody together.
Yeah, like I always say it's like a healthy kind of moment. You know, it's like scary, but it's not. You know, there's definitely life-threatening situations, and dealing with safety is very important. But at the end of the day, you know, we're out there to have fun, but compete, and to have that, you know, high level of anxiety kind of come back. You know, it's like, it's an adrenaline rush that has some safety behind it, if you know what you're doing. And that's what we're here for, is to teach people that can be done. Well, that's awesome. I leave you with any kind of words that you'd like, or if you feel like we covered a lot of stuff. I mean, I really appreciate your time. I know that obviously you're busier than I ever even knew. And I can't wait to get back to getting out there and going sailing. So is there anything else that you'd like to share before we give Corey a minute of a recap of what we've got going on?
No, I just, I want to thank you for the invite to come on this morning. This has been fun. It's good to see so many faces of everyone that joined us. I'm surprised that many people actually called in, to be honest.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, I love the warrior community. Like I said, like, if you're not having fun, don't do it. I wouldn't still be doing this however many years later if I wasn't enjoying it. And it's definitely had an impact on my life, being a part of this program. I'm really sad the San Diego camp this year was canceled, but hopefully something pops up in the summer, and maybe if I have some free time, I'll travel and see you guys. But yeah, looking forward to get back out on the water and hopefully getting some of the San Diego Warriors out with us at some point soon. We'll see.
Yeah, and we have an Etchells out there now. I told you about that.
Yeah, I was not going to be in charge of that. I don't have any time. But but I'll
Yeah,
go
I know you don't have
sailing.
any time, but maybe there'll be a chance to go sailing. But
Yeah,
thank
no,
you,
I'm
Jenna.
game.
So I'm actually gonna pass it to Corey, who's got a little updates on things. Passing it over to Corey about some Warrior stuff. But thank you, Jenna.
Thank you, Ben.
Hey, thanks, Jenna. Appreciate it. So at this point, we continue to stand by. Unfortunately, like Jenna mentioned, we had to pull the plug on the San Diego event for June. We're just not able to gather as that large of a group yet, and there are too many variables between now and then to know if it would really be something we could execute. We are looking at some small group training up live in Michigan. And hopefully being able to participate in the Yugata Regatta for those folks that missed out on Charleston Race Week. We're kind of extending that invite to the Yugata Regatta at the end of July. Should the race organizers hold that event, we're going to continue on with that. Probably largest bullseye right now that we're aiming for is going to be at the end of August out in Park City. We'll be doing a certification course out there. And looking also to open up maybe even some other opportunities to folks that would be local to the Salt Lake City area. So we're not worrying so much about travel, but they can come up and join us there. So stay tuned. We'll keep everybody posted. In the meantime, our goal is just to keep everybody engaged. So keep checking in on each other and join us for morning watches. We'll continue with this program for sure. Share it to anyone you think might benefit or enjoy tuning in. And Wednesday night racing is still on, although it's not on the water. It's online with Warrior Sailing. So open to all of our basic camp graduates. We've been putting the invite out kind of slowly as the program builds and we see what our limitations are in terms of technology. We contacted the IT department and we gave each other the thumbs up that we can extend that invite out a little bit further this coming week. So I'll put the information out through the alumni network and through our alumni email newsletter, and look forward to seeing everybody either online on Wednesday or hopefully at one of our events sometime later on this summer.
Cool. Thank you, Jenna, and thank you all the Warriors. Share it with everybody. We'll record it, and yeah, everyone gets to know Jenna, including me. So thank you guys, and gonna get back to moving some heavy equipment with Oscar here in Port Royal and packing up boats and starting to head things to the Great Lakes. So thank you all.
Sweet. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Have a good
Jenna.
day.
Thanks, Jenna.
See you
Bye.
guys.